quite annoying. So, and then we're just going to wait another minute here or two. I think we have a quorum, but just want to give it another minute.
Here comes Ramona.
Good. And have you heard from anybody?
The only one I heard from was AJ,
Mhm.
and his grandmother had passed away, so he will not be in attendance. And Greg was going to be, he'll be here, but he's working a little late. So
Okay.
What about Andreas? Is he going to be on?
as far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Kind of cool to be downtown Loomis, looking at the traffic going by.
Put you on the payroll.
I know. We're in headquarters tonight.
Yeah, right. You're in the room where it happens, Jan.
Looks like Dave has his hand up. I'm not sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave. You can unmute.
Yes, I was wondering if there's still a meeting on Thursday night up at the depot station.
Are you mean this night, tonight?
Thursday morning.
There was a town council meeting on Thursday night. Is that still at the train depot?
The next town council meeting is next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, that's at the depot?
Yes. Is it going to be Zoom?
Yeah.
Or is it going to
No,
be?
it'll be in person at the depot.
Okay.
And also through Zoom.
Yeah, and also through Zoom.
Okay,
Is
so, did that answer everything for you, Dave?
Yeah, I was wondering why this one is Zoom too. If the other one's going to be in person, I thought that these meetings should be in person too. That's all.
And what happened with that, Dave, is we had this agenda and everything all posted with the restriction just for Zoom. And then it was just this Monday that we got released back to open and in-person meetings. So we left this as it is, but then the next two meetings scheduled for this committee will be live and Zoom.
Cool. Thank you very much. I didn't know. Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right, so it looks like can we go, or are we still waiting for Andreas?
Andreas is not here yet, but I know sometimes he has a 6 o'clock meeting and jumps in as soon as that gets over with. So I'm okay to start without him if everybody else is okay with that.
Okay.
Sean, can you act as our legal guidance?
I will do my best to make sure that we don't get ourselves in too deep of a hole.
There you go.
Does anybody have his cell phone number to give him a quick little text and see if he is?
I sent him a text. He said that he'll be on as soon as he's done with his other meeting. It's probably going to be around 6:45.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's get going. Everybody, is everybody ready? Okay. I'd like to bring our meeting to order. This is the Town of Loomis Land Use Committee meeting. It's February 3rd, 2022. There are several of us here in Town Hall, and the rest, obviously, is a Zoom meeting. The Zoom meeting can be accessed via our agenda, which is on our website. And with that said, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
And I would like to ask Carol, I'm sitting in her desk, to make roll call at her home.
Okay, we have got Chairperson Jan Clark-Kretz.
Here.
Vice Chair Bonnie London.
Here.
No Tim Underko yet. Jean Wilson.
Here.
Beth Cohen.
Here.
Randy Elder,
Here.
auxiliary member Ramona Brockman,
Here.
and Greg is not here yet. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to do committee comment for items not on the agenda. Does anybody on our committee have anything they'd like to discuss not on the agenda?
No.
And are any members of the public have anything they'd like to discuss not on the agenda?
So any of our public members, if you have a comment at this time, please raise your hand. Seeing none.
All right. We are going to go to adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion out there?
I so move.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second, Jean.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Yes, Randy Elder,
Yes.
Jean Wilson,
Yes.
Jan Clark Kretz,
Yes.
Bonnie London,
Yes.
Beth Cohen,
Yes.
and that's all of us. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Now, public comment for items on the consent agenda. Is there any public comment or comments from our committee members? All right, hearing and seeing none, I would then wait for a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda, Jean.
Okay,
I second.
all right, roll call, please.
Yes, Jean Wilson,
Yes.
Randy Elder,
Yes.
Jan Clark Kretz,
Yes.
Bonnie London,
Yes.
Beth Cohen,
Yes.
and that's all of us. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we're just going to roll right into committee matters and hand it back to Mary Beth.
Thank you and welcome everybody and thank you for being here on a beautiful Thursday evening. We're going to pick up this meeting where we left off the last time, and that's with land use change requests. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Christy Consolini, as she is the master of land use change requests. Masteress.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen and then we'll dive in where we left off. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so we left off on site 8. This is at 3239 Taylor Road. It's where Alice's fruit stand is. The request on this one is to change from general commercial to a split of general commercial and light industrial, or perhaps another option. The request is by the property owner. There isn't a, it's a little open-ended, so it's not a particular sticking with one particular designation. So if you have thoughts on that, please share. This is the site right here. So you can see where that's at. And then there is a PG&E easement coming in over here.
So we do have Mike Gervasoni, who is property owner, Brett's brother, is on the line to discuss this site with you. I can tell you that the entire site is within that general commercial zone. It's in total 6.3 acres. With the PG&E receiver station in there, it leaves it at about, I'd say 5.5, just as an estimate. So I think I'd like to turn this over to Mike and get this ball rolling. Mike, you can unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Well, I wanted to say hello, I guess, to start, and I appreciate your time. I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with the history on the property, but the property in question's been in our family since the 30s, when Alice's Fruit Stand was operating. My grandfather was operating it. He's the one that built it and started there. The property was designated commercial and agricultural back then. So it was split use or dual use or something like that way back when. The last committee or the last revision, I think is when it changed, the town plan changed it to single designation of general commercial. And what we've seen here over the last, let's say 20 years is the property is sold a couple times. My mother, I'm speaking on behalf of my mom, Carol Wolf, she sold the property now twice. And it's always had some mixed use to it. When it's sold, it was there's some sort of commercial use along Taylor Road, which I think is what we're asking to still continue that way. And then it's always had some sort of residential use in the back, whether it's condos or townhomes or something like that. There's always been some sort of residential development, and that's kind of where we're leaning now. I think in speaking to my mom, she'd like to see it designated that way if everybody sees that as a benefit to the town. So if we could split it where there's commercial in the front along Taylor Road, and then in the back have a residential use, that would be the preferred, I think, designation from the family end. So we're open to anything right now, actually, that you guys see as a benefit to the town as well. We're trying to figure out how we make this a win-win for everybody, because to have the whole property designated as general commercial, one, isn't really in line with what has happened in the past as far as sale of the property. And it just makes more sense for us if moving forward, if we could split it up somehow. But we're not that familiar with all the rules and regulations and what makes the most sense from your guys' end. So we're open to hear anything from the town that you guys think might be beneficial.
So if I could just add a little to this conversation, the existing zoning does allow the general commercial zoning designation allows for multifamily housing with a minor use permit in that zone. And as far as density, it's 2 to 10 dwelling units per acre. So, we'd have to, with taking out the PG&E receiver station, the existing dwelling, you might end up with 4 acres. I'm just throwing out a number, I don't know. Which at 2 to 10 units would be 8 to 40 units on the back part of that parcel, if that helps anybody's brain at all.
I'm sorry, Mary Beth, can you just say the last sentence again about how many houses and what was that?
Sure. I was, just rough estimation, if there's 4 acres remaining, then it's 2 to 10 units per acre. So that would be 8 to 40 units on the back portion of that parcel under the existing zoning.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's also a bunch of different retail trades and, things like that can already happen there. It just depends on, I think what the Gervasonis are trying to accomplish is to get some feedback as far as what the town community would like to see there.
Okay. Committee members, do you have any questions for the owner while he's here?
I do. What do you envision as to the amount of the commercial in the front part of the lot in terms of acreage?
Well, we weren't sure if there was a minimum, but I think we found out that the minimum commercial lot size didn't have to be that big. But what we were thinking just off the top of our heads that would make sense is if from the existing house that's on the property now, from basically, let's say the driveway to that, everything to the left frontage where Alice's fruit stand currently sits, everything on that side would be the commercial. And the reason why we're asking for this, one, we think it makes the most sense for it to be residential. We understand the commercial aspect of it. again, it has been since 1930 have some sort of commercial part to it. And my mom actually ran Alice's again not too long ago, let's say 20, 30 years ago. She was running Alice's, so it made sense for the commercial side. And we see the value in that for the town. The problem is the developers who come in and who have purchased it, as you guys mentioned, it allows for split use or some residential property to be put on there, but they're residential developers. They're not commercial developers, so they're really not. That's not their strong point. So if we split it, we think we could get a commercial development in on the commercial part of it, and then a residential on the residential part of it. But we envision that front part where Alice is at as probably the smartest use right now for the commercial side. But again, we're open to anything you guys might recommend.
So just to be clear, you are asking, you would desire a split of the property into two separate parcels.
That would make the most sense, I think, from our end, just from what we've seen in the past and the way the property we feel like would be best in the future. If there was any development, it would make the most sense, we think. But again, we're open to anything that you guys might have to offer.
Okay. Thank you.
Looks like Bonnie has her hand up.
Hi there. I think I'm a little confused. Is it Mike? When you mentioned,
It is.
Hi, my name's Bonnie. You mentioned that your mom sold the property twice. So who owns the property?
We do. So the first time it sold was during the great real estate debacle of 2000, the early 2000s. And they foreclosed on one of the developers who my mom did, who purchased the property. So she had to foreclose on them and took the property back. The last time she sold, it was to a gentleman who has done business in town before, and he was a property developer, and he has since defaulted also on the property. So we took the property back once again.
Okay.
So it sold twice, but it never closed.
Got it.
Yeah. So that was how it went.
Okay. I understand that better now. And then my question too would be, it sounds as if it's been residential developers who seem to have expressed interest on this property. Do you as a family, do you have any wishes for it to be exclusively residential, or do you prefer to have that mix?
Well, I think it was the town's opinion that it have that commercial piece to it on the front. We're not opposed to considering just fully residential if that makes the most sense. But we were kind of almost, and I don't want to say or speak for anybody when I say that we were told or encouraged that along Taylor Road there, they'd like to see some sort of commercial piece to that frontage part. Which is fine. I think it could make sense for some commercial development there, maybe the right one, maybe a little restaurant or something like that. But yeah, I'm not sure what would fit there with houses in the front, especially with the housing track right to the east of that, I guess it would be.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, and then this question is directed to staff, because I know with our housing element, we are still looking for, 3 or 4 acres of high density housing. I mean, is that a consideration for this parcel or not?
It's really up to the committee. Certainly, it would be a fine location for townhouses and higher density development. But that's really a committee decision.
And this is the property right here. So you can see that there is commercial along Taylor but residential to the east and also to the south.
Right, and a school right next to it too, pretty
Right.
much. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Jean, did you have any questions?
I'm wondering if, Mary Beth, if you could put the satellite view and tell us what the businesses are in that area.
So here is the satellite view. Sorry about that. You can see that there is Foothill Feed is over here, and the Feathered Nest is almost across the street there. Again, you'll see the residences all over on this side and the school down here. So,
And between Foothill Feed and this parcel is the granite rock guy.
Okay, the rock.
This parcel, yeah, the rock guy.
And what's across the street other than Feathered Nest?
Look like a house.
Lugo's is across the street, isn't it?
Oh, Ludo's
Yes.
new
Lugos.
Yeah,
auto place.
that new auto place.
Yeah.
Also,
Directly across the
with
street.
that PG&E thing that's on that property too, that's something that we need to consider if we're talking about potentially putting housing there. I don't know. I don't know, like code stuff, how that works, but that would be a little bit of a concern, I would think. One of the things that's a little bit, we don't like to do split. We don't like to put two different designations on one parcel. And so if the idea is to do both commercial and residential there, I think it'd probably be a better idea to process a lot split, create two parcels, and then do the land use designation as part of that too.
But Sean, with general commercial, doesn't it inherently have residential allowable uses?
Yeah, but not single family though, right?
Correct. Multi-family.
Right. So if the property owner is talking about doing single family lots on there, I wouldn't think that doing half or not half or whatever the split is, but having it split between commercial and residential, knowing that the residential will be developed out as single family lots. I'm not sure. I don't think that's not an ideal situation. I'll put it that way. We can do that, but I think that we're trying to get away from that because we've run into some issues on other parcels that have had that, and it's created some problems for us. Just for what it's worth. I'd be more concerned about the gas line thing being there and having that right next door to a residential subdivision seems a little, I don't know.
Do we know anything about that gas line as far as implications for whatever kind of uses are around it? Did they tell the owners anything more about it? Or have we checked into that at all?
Yeah, we had a conversation with PG&E, and they said it would be up to the town or the county, whatever the regulations are. Because we were asking about easements or offsets, or what could be around there, how close could it be? But they said that that's up to the city or town and county regulations, and we said okay. They didn't know.
Or they didn't want to know.
Did they, Mike? Did they require any kind of a setback or I mean, I know that there's an easement on it, but like you can't build something within X number of feet, or like, is there anything like that? Did they say anything about that?
Yeah, there was nothing, no offset or anything. We asked them, would there be any restrictions if that was the road coming into a residential housing area, let's say, if that would be, something that they would be opposed to. And they said no, as long as the town or the county said it was fine.
So I have a question. If somebody were to come in and with its current zoning, go ahead and develop a project or propose to develop a project with the commercial in the front and the residential in the back, and having it all be general commercially zoned, it seems like the lot line adjustment would happen at that point when there's a viable a viable project. So I'm wondering if, depending on what the committee thinks, it seems like you'd be able to have a higher density with the current zoning that you're at. And does the family have a preference as to what type of houses that they feel that they want to have on their property?
Well, I mean, ideally, we saw it turn into something like what that was an extension of the neighborhood to the east of it, and just kind of be part of that almost is kind of the way we saw it. I mean, because that was all part of the ranch. I mean, that was part of the ranch originally. The ranch actually went all the way through that housing area, all the way down to the high school. My grandfather built the feed store and all that stuff. That was all part of the ranch at one point in time. So, and it's slowly kind of obviously been sold off to other parties. But if it was a part of that neighborhood somehow, or had a similar feel to that, that seems the most natural to us, and probably I think what my mom would has said she would like to see, if there's any value in that. But there's been a continued push towards the commercial side of keeping that part, or keeping part commercial. If no one's married to that idea, then, and just letting it all go and just be part of that neighborhood, that seems like it is the most enticing, or whatever the right word might be to say, for a developer to come in. Because what we've
Oh, you're muted, Mike. Whoop.
Yes.
You were muted for a second. Just repeat your last sentence.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, what we've seen is the developers who've come in and purchased the property, or had ideas of purchasing the property in the past, really wring their hands with the whole commercial piece. They're just like, we don't know what to do. This is really not our expertise or our business, but we'll just throw something on there. And we think that's such a bad idea. Why are we doing this to these people who don't really want to be doing this, but they understand that they have to under the general commercial designation. They have to put something there. So they kind of go through this weird thing, and then they come up with some idea, as opposed to just splitting it up. And then the residential guys do residential, the commercial guys do commercial, and then everybody's happy.
All right, so committee, what do you feel like? What do you think, Beth? What do you see as you're driving down Taylor Road? What would your vision be for this piece?
Well, my question is, does it have to have commercial on it as it's zoned right now?
Yes.
How much?
Is there a percentage?
No, actually, you could develop the whole thing at 2 to 8 units per acre.
Oh,
I see. Yep. There's no reason to maintain commercial.
Okay.
And that's 2 to 10 units per acre.
Correct.
It should be all residential.
But what they couldn't do is they could not match the to the west. They couldn't match that, whatever RM is, that zoning, the medium density.
It would be a higher density, correct?
Yeah.
So just to clarify, the whole parcel could be residential?
Yes, high density.
It seems to me that would be a good transition fit with the development next door and with the high school to the west.
Okay.
Bonnie, I would agree, because again, if we go to the kind of like the planning theory that we're supposed to be working off, that we have the higher density located in the core, and this really is still part of the core of the town, that it would make more sense to have it be the slightly higher density. I also, again, looking from this view, if there's ways that we could create some connection for walking trails to the school. What is that, Loomis Grammar right over there? And then I think just down the road, Del Oro, and then the Native American school. But yeah, like if there's some way that there could be some kind of backway path there, it would be really nice too.
It's the other way around, Bonnie. This is Del Oro right next.
Oh, this
to the-
is? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
further up toward the edge of town here.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have commercial up further on Taylor, or is this kind of the end of it?
That's
I'll
pretty much the
I'll
end.
show you.
Yeah, there's a little spot.
This is this parcel here. So you can see across the street on Taylor, it goes all the way up to the limit. And then there's a little piece here. And then on the west side, there is more commercial there.
So the west is the feed store, right?
Right.
Mhm. What's in the little one? What is in that little red little blip there? Is there an existing business there?
Up here.
Is there an existing business there? Is it empty or what is that?
I am not sure.
I think it's a house.
I'm looking. Yeah, it's a house.
Yeah, because they just built a pool.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know, another question I have though, is the town planning to do like a retail study to figure out how much commercial we need? I know that there was the one with the village, but it may not be comparing apples to apples with what we're trying to do now. But I mean, you know, before we change any of the commercial designations, I think it's important to find out, you know, what our needs are first.
There was one done as part of the economic development element. There was one done.
Correct.
Was that the
Oh,
one
do
that looked at the kind of from the county's study?
No, ours was done by AECom. I don't think it might have tiered off a little bit of the counties, but it wasn't done by Placeworks. It was done by AECom.
Was that the one that essentially said we needed a lot more warehousing or?
Right.
Correct. That
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Right. And not so much. I think it was like there was just ballparking it, and from what I remember, and the numbers aren't going to be right, but I think it was something like 180,000 square feet, somewhere around there. Retail is all that we could support, but there was a gap for sure, and I don't remember what the number was, but for industrial space, there was a gap
Okay,
that we could support more.
thanks.
anybody
So I
else
guess
on the committee that we haven't heard from yet? Beth or Ramona? Beth, do you have a comment?
I don't. I really have no opinion on this, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. Ramona, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same. I'm not quite, I understand its proximity to the high school and that it has residential immediately to the other side. I could see, how residential would work in that area. Whether I would take that all the way to, like I said, it could be all high density residential in that land use designation of general commercial. But I personally wouldn't be in favor of it, of all being high density residential. I would, maybe a portion of it. I kind of mixed feelings on it just because it is at the edge of our town. But the medium density residential is already all the way to the edge of our town. So it's kind of, in essence, it seems to be a bit in no man's land. It really does. And if commercial interests have not cropped up, that tends to be a bit of a problem if you attract residential developers, which I can easily see because that's exactly what the market will tend towards is residential development. But I could definitely see value because from my opinion, Swetzer is just busting at the seams typically, that there just isn't enough space that people want in that industrial area. But, this obviously would be commercial land use designation, but, I don't know if there's any way to, kind of accommodate some of the industrial needs, if you will, in a general commercial zone. That may not be as industrial, but, kind of more of a commercial ended type of light industrial kind of use that would fit into something like that, that may be able to locate there. I was just thinking about that the other day of, what makes it commercial versus light industrial all the time. Sometimes if you have like a showroom of cabinets that you produce, but you produce them on site, it's kind of both. It's sort of light industrial, but yet, cabinet making isn't really super heavy light industrial, like a wood shop.
Do you know what would make a lot of sense to me is we kind of touched upon it before with the enrichment learning centers, but right now we have like gymnastics and McLaughlin's and music and some of those places over off of Swetzer, whereas this would make a lot of sense to have some of those enrichment classes such as martial arts or music, tutoring, just because it is near so many schools and residential. Just because I know for McLaughlin in particular, there are families that are driving in from all over, but they have to go all the way through town and get into Swetzer just for, again, McLaughlin or gymnastics. Whereas, this is something where kids could walk to right after school. So I don't remember what those designations were, but that would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that's true. I was kind of thinking of that there's things that are occupying those Swetzer areas that don't necessarily need to necessarily occupy that space, but it's because they're large areas that, because the activity uses a large area like a gymnastics center or a music center. But yeah, that would fit much better, I would think, on fronting off of Taylor, and then free up some of those light industrial spaces for light industrial things.
Yeah, I think we offered or considered and mentioned before in conversation the light or limited industrial. I think it's called the two designations. If that's something that you all would be open to, we've tried to suggest maybe even something like that.
Jean here. I would be concerned about that, just given the problems that we have repeatedly had over time, putting the limited industrial next to residential. I think probably a lot of the uses that might work well that have been mentioned probably can go in commercial and don't have to be in light industrial. It's just that's the only place there was. And I can remember Jenny saying that a lot of the businesses in Swetzer are there because there was no place else for them to go. And if there were commercial space for them, they would prefer to be, like along the main drag rather than back on Swetzer. And that they didn't necessarily want to be or have to be in a light industrial area. That's just the only place they had. So I'm looking at this thinking maybe it would be the better idea to go ahead and have some commercial along the front, let them do a lot split when some plans could come together, and have some type of residential zoning on the back. And I do hear people saying high density, but our high density is really not the 2 to 10. I think that's, I don't know, it's called medium high or something, but we need to be careful what we're talking about here, because are we talking about 2 to 10, or are we talking about something that's more like the 20, or some mix in this property? And I don't know how much it takes to fit in, say, the maybe 4 acres or something that would be left. I remember when we saw some of you have seen the pictures that Mark had of different types of housing, and I was rather amazed how much you could get into a fairly small space. But I guess I would think that maybe we would want to go with letting them do a lot split, but they're probably not going to be ready for that until they have some idea what kind of things would go in, and so they'd know where they wanted to draw the lines. And also we will definitely need information about that gas line.
Point. Anybody else on the committee have any comments? If not, let's open it up for public comment. Anybody in the public have anything they want to say? Just raise your hand.
Go ahead, Miguel. You can unmute.
You're muted, Miguel.
There. Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Since I'm the oldest person here, let me go back a little bit in the history of this property. Before the last general plan, this was all residential. And the lady that owned it, whose name I now forget, same owner, she wanted it commercial because she felt that she could get more money out of the property if it was commercial. So it was zoned commercial. After that date, there were two subdivisions, or maybe one subdivision, that map that was presented into great detail. The first one didn't work because of the slopes and everything. And Brian, who was our public works director, worked with the proposed subdivider and came up with a subdivision. Forget exactly how large the lots were, but they were between 5,000 and 7,000 square feet. And it was going to use the whole property. And what the developer was going to do was to move the fruit shed downtown so they would maintain the fruit shed. So it was stated that you couldn't have residential in this, you'd have to have high density commercial in this, or high density residential in this commercial. But the plan that came before the council, I don't know, 15 years ago, it wasn't high density, it was, you know, kind of medium density. And it kind of worked. If the front's commercial, which might have some value, I don't know if there's enough room to really put in the subdivision. So I would consider making it probably all residential. It was stated that the commercial doesn't work with the residential, but on Taylor Road, the town required the front of Taylor to be commercial. So that has been established already. But if you take, somebody have to see if you zone the front commercial, is really enough land to put in the residential, and not at a 10 units per acre, but more like 5 or 6 units per acre is what I would recommend. So it would be compatible with the adjoining uses. Thanks.
Thank you, Miguel. Anybody else? Public comment?
Could we ask Mike, what kind of proposals did you have for the people that were interested in doing residential? Was it just single family, smaller lots, bigger lots, any multifamily?
I believe, as Miguel just mentioned, he seemed to have a pretty good knowledge of the past as well. And I would say there was the two I remember. One was, I believe, what he was just mentioning, where it was more residential. And then the second was more townhome, condominium sort of proposal. So there were a little more, they were more units, but spread out a little bit, where there was walking paths and everything else kind of as part of it. So it was kind of park in nature as well as houses, but smaller ones and just more of them kind of spread about.
So you wouldn't have opposition particularly to either type?
No, I think that makes the most sense. And that's what we're trying to do here, is make sense this time before we go into another 20-year period where we're kind of stuck. So if as it was mentioned by Miguel, someone said that they wanted Taylor Road to be commercial, but again, as you look at the property, you know, that I think that's the problem with commercial developers. They don't see the value of, you know, what would you put all the way down there next to the, you know, residential subdivision right next door. What would make the most sense as far as businesses, and then how many. So if there's a need for something to be commercial by the town, if we could carve that out somehow, and then the residential developers know exactly what they're working with and what makes the most sense. That makes sense to me. Again, that's why I defer to you guys. What makes sense?
Thanks, Mike.
Seems to me that the general commercial affords you that flexibility right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Beth, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it seems to me like we might be putting the cart before the horse, you know what I mean? Where we don't, as the general plan is being amended, we wouldn't, like we've said before, want to split a parcel and say this half of the parcel is going to be called commercial and the other half is called medium density residential or whatever we land on. So there's nothing that precludes the owner of this property to you know, work the system outside of the general plan amendment. You know, you can still ask for a parcel split when you figure out, you know, exactly who wants to develop the front half and who wants to develop the back half. And then in that parcel split, then you also ask for, you know, a land use designation change for the back half. It doesn't have to be in this general plan amendment, which is why I would be hesitant to make a change under it, because I don't, just based on the conversation, it seems like there's too much up in the air that is unresolved. So I don't understand why we would do that in a committee form instead of waiting until the actual proposal is in place.
Thanks, Beth.
Mike said there was some kind of requirement that there be commercial facing Taylor. Is there something, something that is written into the general plan that requires that? I don't really remember.
I think when it's talking about areas of parts of Loomis, it talks about, you know, having general commercial along Taylor Road, but I don't know if it was a policy. Right, Anders?
I was going to ask Mary Beth to take a look up the land use designation code to see if when you do the housing that you have to have commercial with it, that would be in the description of the code. And yeah. I can't recall.
Yeah, so what it says in the general plan for general commercial, this designation is intended mainly for retail and service commercial uses located outside of the downtown core that primarily serve local residents and businesses. The areas within this land use designation are located along Taylor Road, Sarah College, from I-80 to Taylor, I-80 to Horseshoe Bar to King, and then it talks about height and lot coverages.
But it doesn't say that you have to have the residential. There's no statement that you have to have commercial with the residential, correct?
No, the last sentence says the density of residential uses may range from 2 to 10 dwellings per acre where allowed by the policies for specific areas.
So as others said, 2 to 10 is not that different than what's adjacent to the west, so that gives you the opportunity to do that. My thought is leave it as it is, because the general commercial provides a lot of flexibility for commercial or residential. And I think the thing to do, Mike, when you're marketing the property is work closely with the town and the potential applicants to say, hey, there are various things you can do on this parcel. And it could be that you do want a lot split and change the land use designation to make it clear. But right now, I think you have the greatest flexibility possible in marketing this land, either for commercial, mixed commercial, residential, or just residential.
That's fair. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say that's fair. If you guys feel like this is the best designation for the town, because it provides the most flexibility for your end, our experience is just that it is almost maybe a little bit confusing for at least for the developers who have approached us in the past. Because most of them, and that's why I would ask, if we feel like it's going to be residential, then why not just designate it residential if that's the best use for the town? Unless it's not. That's what I'm wondering here. It sounds like, yeah, we all know that there's going to be houses there. So why don't we just zone it housing or residential and then just move forward? Because that's going to be what happens anyways.
Mary Beth, at the end of what you read to us, it said something unless it was designated something in a specific area plan. Is there one for this area that mentions any further instructions?
I think those specific area plans have all been rolled into the code since the 2001 general plan update. But Andy, do you recall that also?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So that's correct.
So there is none for this like there was for the land behind Rayleigh's and Turtle Island and
Correct.
Those specific areas.
That is correct.
Correct.
All right, committee. So Mike.
It sounds like we would want Mike to know that I think we would be amenable to a lot split if that's what was going to work out for them to be able to sell the commercial in the front and residential further back. If that worked best for them, that I think we're amenable to that.
Yeah, it seemed, Mike, like retaining the existing land use might be, good for you and for the town, in that you do have flexibility of doing both or just one type of use. And it's just a matter of, discussing that and making sure that the developers understand that they do have that flexibility too.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, as long as the residential developers feel like, yeah, okay, it's designated general commercial, but we're not going to get a lot of whatever pushback, heartache, or whatever that they would get trying to move into that residential only type of scenario. That's all. And as long as everybody feels like that's not going to happen, then okay. I mean, yeah, it doesn't matter to me. I think to us, we just want to make sure it makes the most sense from your perspective, and I guess our perspective too, moving forward, because we see it as the best use as residential. But if leaving it the way that it is works out best from your position, then yeah, we're not opposed to that.
Go ahead, Jean.
Okay, I thought there was a specific area policy, and there is on page 40, at least of my copy of the general plan, for general commercial. That's what this is, right? General commercial.
Yes.
Designation on Taylor Road, northeast of Sierra College Boulevard. These parcels should be developed with commercial uses along Taylor Road frontage, with office uses or multifamily residential behind the commercial to buffer the adjacent single-family residential uses from noise, glare, and activities associated with commercial uses. So that may be where Mike felt that when it says it should be, that they had to put commercial there because it is in the policies.
But it's not shall be, it should be. So that gives the town discretion.
Right. Because words mean things, and right, it says should be, not shall be or will be. But that's where I think the subjective language, it really depends on who's sitting there, and who's making the argument, and then who's listening to it and deciding on the argument. And that's what we're trying to just overcome right now today, since we're at this point, once every 20-year thing, is how can we make this as simple moving forward? So if all of us aren't here and someone else is, that they don't get stuck in a place where, oh my gosh, I wish we would have just done this way, right now. I wish those guys would have done this. And that's kind of where we're at with this whole thing, is what makes the most sense to us. A residential designation, simply, plainly, clearly stated, so that a developer goes, okay, this is what I have to do. This is what I want to do. Boom. I don't have to convince anybody. Here's my plan. And then everybody just goes, yep, that makes the most sense. That makes sense to us because it's simple. There's not a lot of trying to convince anybody, but making sure that we meet the town's objective of whatever that commercial along Taylor Road that was just read, because we don't want to be opposed or not be, kind of aware that that's there too, and make sure that we do the right thing by that. However we do that, and if it's carve something out and make it commercial so that everybody clearly sees what that is and where it is, then great, let's do that.
Beth, did you have another comment? Beth?
I was just going to say, I can, after hearing Jean read that, not requirement, but, request of general commercial property owners along Taylor, I can see where the frustration is from the owner, because the developer is at the mercy of whoever is processing the application at that point. It's not a flexible parcel necessarily. But I also am curious, because I think the original request said I want to change this parcel to light industrial. And then the follow-up was I want to split it, the front half commercial, the back half residential, and now all residential. So I just don't know what the actual request is, I guess.
I apologize for that. If the problem is we've tried to figure out what makes the most sense to you folks. That's we think residential potentially for the whole thing, but we realize that that's probably not based on what was just read along the whole commercial along Taylor Road thing. We realize that wouldn't go in along with what the town wants. So, okay. So we tried to really figure out what would make the most sense, what would be the best win for the town. And we came up with all kinds of weird ideas, whether it was limited, light industrial, because there was a need for that. And again, if we just go with what we're talking about today, right now, and where we're really at after all of this, is if we could carve out the majority of the property as residential, that makes sense, and then have a space for commercial, because that makes sense. That would make the most sense to us, because it's just easier. It's just simple. You don't have to convince anybody. Everybody knows what it means and what its use is, and then we move forward. That's it.
Now, at the beginning of the discussion, someone mentioned, would this be a site for the high density? And we all know that we've got, a couple of years, but we're going to have to designate some places in town for some higher density to meet the state requirements. I don't know if that is something that would be considered for at least part of this parcel or not. It would be higher than the 2 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that something that we look at down the road? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Bonnie brought that up earlier. And then Mark said that was sort of up to us. We could add it to the list. I know that's something that I think we were on the agenda. But it sounds like leaving the designation as it is. I'm kind of hearing that's sort of the majority of the committee, and also, I think it does allow for the flexibility for Mike and for potential projects. Is that what everybody's, is that where we're all at?
Randy has his hand up.
Go ahead, Randy.
Well, thank you. I'm comfortable leaving it at general commercial. I think that I'm hearing kind of that from most everyone out there, including the property owner. However, I would recommend that if we can carry this to the next meeting without interfering with our schedule, I could give this a real fair consideration. It seems to me this highlights a number of the conflicts, if you will, that we deal with people in planning, and particularly longer range planning in the community have to face every day. How do you fit the commercial and residential together so it works out well along with the growth of the town? And so I like to roll this into the next meeting for final determination. But if I had to vote tonight, I would vote to keep the designation as is.
Okay.
I would agree with Randy, because I think town staff also needs to find out a little bit more about the PG&E requirements and the impact that would have on that lot.
Okay. Anybody disagree with putting this till the next time so we can get some more information? All right. Mike, we're going to talk about your parcel again next time.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for your time. Sorry to take up so.
No, it's important. Your land is important. Our town is important. So it was strong work. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time.
Mike, this is Bonnie. I also just want to thank you for really going above and beyond to try to work with the town to accommodate both our needs. So thank you.
No problem. We're in this together, so we want it to be a win-win for sure.
And Mike, our next meeting is scheduled for February 17th.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, Christy.
Okay, so the next site is number 9 on the map. It's 3661 Bankhead Road. The request is by the property owner to change from RE to RR. I will scroll down so you can see the parcel. So we're looking at this parcel right here. We're at Bankhead and Saunders. Let me go, I'll put that up, and then let me go to the map so you can see. Here, we're looking at this parcel right in here. So it's currently it's currently RE, and they would like to change that to be a higher density.
That seems like spot zoning. Am I incorrect in that?
It would be an island.
Yes, Beth, that's correct.
And the subcommittee, what was their recommendation?
No change.
No change.
That would be my recommendation.
We have the owner here though, right?
This is Greg.
Yes.
Hi, Greg. Did you want to talk to the committee?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me all right?
No, you're
No.
Can you hear me? Hello? Oh,
Hello.
I'm unmuted as far as I can see. I'm on my cell phone.
Okay, yeah. We can hear you now, but you were breaking up earlier.
Okay. No, I am not going to contest the previous decision. So we'll just kind of leave it as it is. There's a lot of the neighbors around me have some 1 acre lots or kind of non-conforming lots. Those would be the neighbors to the south. And I do have access to PCWA drinking water, and I do have sewer, that comes up the road all the way to this point. So from that standpoint, it would make sense, but that's okay. We'll just see. It wasn't a huge issue with us. So we'll leave it as it is.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Yep.
All right, committee, we're gonna skip on that one then.
Okay, that takes us to site 10. This is, it's a request along the whole corridor. It's not made by a property owner. It's a request to change those properties from RE/RA to allow low and medium density residential. So it would be a change in that designation along this route, which I will share the map. So we're looking at in all this area, it's all RA and RE until you get down to Taylor Road.
Okay. So it's a pretty big ask and it's multiple parcels. And the recommendation from the last committee was no change.
Correct.
Does anybody in the committee have a different opinion than that?
No.
Okay. And there's no members of the public out there? I forgot to ask about that. Well, it doesn't matter in the last one.
No.
Nope.
Oh, Dave, go ahead.
I'd like to leave it the way it is. I see this was recommended by Matt Fox. We should leave it the way it is. We don't need high density housing on Sierra College. If Matt Fox wants it in his backyard, then you could change the density over where he lives.
All right. Thanks, Dave. All right, committee members, if nobody is in disagreement with the no change, then we will leave it at no change.
Okay. And that takes us to site 11. This is let's see. So we're looking at sort of this general area at Horseshoe Bar Road and Brace Road. This is by request by a non-owner, or just a member of the public, to change from RE to medium high or high density. The subcommittee recommended no change on those, and it's just a general area. It's not any of those property owners requesting this change. It was, I believe, a request in terms of citing where we could put those additional high density units that are required of the town.
Okay, again, this is much like the last one, it sounds like. So is there anybody on the committee that is disagreeing with the no change from the subcommittee?
I vote no change.
Okay, and any members of the public? All right, no change.
Okay. And moving right along, we're at site 12. This is at the northeastern parcel with the Hidden Grove application. So we're looking at this area. It's just this upper triangle of that site that would be part of that Hidden Grove area. And this was by a non-owner asking about the use of the property that converted to residential single-family zoning from office commercial, and asked about the use of density proposed for that parcel and voiced concern that high density wouldn't fit in this area. So this area is designated as residential medium density, and it's zoned CO. So it's mismatched zoning and land use designation. But again, this is within the Hidden Grove application area.
And again, the subcommittee recommended no change.
Correct, because it's part of that application.
So any of our committee members disagree with that?
No.
Any members of the public?
None.
Okay, looks like no change on that one.
Okay, site 13 was withdrawn. The person suggesting the change said that it was not the right area that they were looking at, and that's already zoned the way they, or designated the way they wanted to. Site 14 was also withdrawn. This is the all of these parcels over here at Sierra College towards the bottom part of the town. That application's withdrawn. The current owner wishes to leave everything as is.
Okay.
So same on 15 is withdrawn, and then 16, it's a request by the owner. And this is this parcel right here. So you have the Hidden Grove application area right here, Horseshoe Bar Road coming through here. I believe the owner is on the phone or joining us tonight. The subcommittee did recommend no change, but did not hear from the owner at that time.
Okay, great. And Vinyl's here, right?
That's correct.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you see me?
No.
How do you see me?
I see just your name printed.
So under view options, what would I do?
So
I'm moving you. Hang on.
Join as panelist?
Yes.
Let me know if you have something to share on the screen and I will stop sharing.
Okay, can you see me now?
No, you need to start your video.
Okay. Can you see me now?
There you are.
There you are.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Hi, Mary Beth. How are you?
Great, Vinyl. Thank you.
How you doing, Sean? Sean must be out walking the dog.
He's muted.
I'm here. I'm all good.
Okay, well, you guys mind if I jump into a little spiel and we'll see where it lands?
Go for it.
Okay, thanks for hearing my request. My name is Vinyl Perkins. I'm the owner of the 3-acre property on Horseshoe Bar Road, directly next to and north of the Rayleigh Shopping Center near the off-ramp of I-80 in Loomis. Our property is currently zoned TC 20, which includes the 20 in the general plan. This is restricted light retail with the -20 for the possibility of placing 20 units per acre on the site. I guess that was mandated by, that was put on there to help the town of Loomis with the issues in identifying the additional units that was needed by state, I guess. But anyway, I'm requesting that you consider allowing a change of the current town center TC designation to GC, general commercial designation, which is more consistent with the general plan and master plan, which I will discuss moving forward. It will also make us compatible and with the same zoning as our next door neighbor, the Rayleigh Shopping Center, which is zone general commercial. I understand the town needs the 20 units per acre on the site to adhere to potential state mandated housing. So I ask that if possible, and I talked a little bit about this with Mary Beth in recent weeks, try to keep this at 20, keep that -20 as a earmark with a property designation. So it would still be, so it is still currently just dirt and unbuilt, unlike the other built out properties. I guess what I'm asking for would be is if there would be a possibility for designation of CG 20 or GC 20. It is my understanding that Loomis could potentially make that change if asked. If not, then table 3.1 in element 3, Roman numeral 3 of the general plan does read to allow for 2 to 10 dwelling units per acre as allowed by the specific area policies. You guys talked about that a little bit earlier, so up to 10 units. In this scenario, Loomis could continue to identify our vacant property as the -20 in the designation and also allow us to be compatible with the Rayleigh Shopping Center next door as a GC property, just like they are, and also keep keep on the table the possibility of possibly putting some high density residential on the site. We don't know what Hidden Grove is doing or anything like that, but it's not out of the realm. This said, we feel the current designation to TC was designed for a more restrictive zone in the downtown historic core area of Taylor Road. This makes sense to keep up with the old town/downtown core protected in its historic feel. Recently, I read into the general plan and also the accompanied Loomis master plan, and I found a few things I'd like to share. Number one, in the general plan under community development, land uses, Roman numeral 3-4, there's descriptions of general commercial and town center commercial. And under A, it states, and I'll quote, this designation is intended mainly for retail and service commercial uses located outside the downtown core that primarily serves local residents and businesses. Areas within the land use designation may also accommodate residential uses as part of the mixed use structures or site development. Then B, under town center commercial, I'll quote, it says this designation is applied to approximately 39 acres along Taylor and Horseshoe Bar Roads to the area identified as the downtown core by the Loomis Town Center Master Plan prepared in 1992. According to the master plan, the downtown core describes an area where a variety of higher intensity uses are encouraged. And I understand that. After reading this, I looked up the Loomis master plan to find language on where specifically it considers town center locations, where you'd obviously find a TD designation or town core identification. And I found the following. In the new Loomis Master Plan, Volume 1, Chapter 3, and that's in Vision Concept, that's Figure 3. Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay, under 3.1, the master plan illustrates exactly where the town center, it's got bubbles. It shows the town center, the town core, and town gateways entering the town center and the core areas that are all in different bubbled areas. Okay. And by the way, I've got that on my computer if you guys want to see it.
And
am I able to do that for you?
if you
Yeah,
you can
share your screen.
Okay. So if you take a look at, say, that, do you see that?
No.
Oh, crap. Okay. All right. Well,
I can get it on my end. It was volume 1.
yes, Volume 1, Chapter 3, Figure 3-1. And that's in the master plan?
Oh, in the master plan. No, I don't have that.
Okay, let me describe it to you then, because I don't want to slow anything down. In this Figure 3-1, it shows, it breaks everything up along Taylor Road. In the red bubbled area, it shows along Taylor Road from basically Lorenzo's to the west, and then going eastward to Blue Goose. That is bubbled red, which is Town Center or Zone TC, and it is Zone TC. And from the from the corner of Taylor Road south on Horseshoe Bar Road, that ends in Library Drive. That's where the red bubbled area is. There's actually 3 areas of this red bubble. It starts at Lorenzo's to the west and goes all the way to Horseshoe Bar Road and Taylor Road. And then that little intersection is called Town Center Core. Town Center Core, it's in a green bubble. And then as you move east, you're back into the Town Center zoning all the way to the Blue Goose. Okay. And then one from the Blue Goose to King Road, that's called the Eastern Gateway. Now, if you go over to the west, from Lorenzo's going west to Taylor Road, that's called the Western Gateway. Both of these areas are zoned general commercial. And then you go down to my center and to the town center designations, that goes from Taylor Road and Horseshoe Bar Road south to the Southern Gateway. They call it the Gateway in the master plan. That stops at Library Drive, and then I'm in the Gateway. Okay, and so, but my center is Zone TC, Town Center, and the other 2 Gateway projects are Zone General Commercial. So anyway, that being said, When looking at these gateway areas, the Western Gateway property and the Eastern Gateway property are zoned GC. But my gateway is next to the shopping center, next to the Raleigh Shopping Center, and it's zone TC. Going back to the updated general plan color-coded map, other properties located on the west side, and you guys have got that updated general plan map. If going back to that updated general plan coded map, other properties on the west side of Horseshoe Bar Road and I-80 are zoned TC. Most of them are zone TC, and I think there's another one that's zone commercial. But they're older properties that were built from the 1960s up to 1980. My property continues to stay raw dirt at this time, and it's sitting next to Raley's, which is a newer property. Lastly, I went on to find a paragraph in the general plan, namely under community development, land use, paragraph G, number 2, entitled General Commercial and Office Property Designations north of the Raleigh Center, and also at I-80 and King Road. Okay, I'm north of the Raleigh Center. Within 2B, the paragraph states as follows: the West General site should be developed with a mixture of land uses consisting of 3 tiers. General commercial and or office uses should be located next to the Raleigh Center. Low profile office structure should be placed in a tier 2 after the commercial uses, and then it goes on to say it'll continue to go down in the designations, but it's stated next to Raley's, it would be zone general commercial. In closing, I'd just like to say this: our property is about 3 acres, which may be fully built out, or we may lose about 1 acre and have just about 2 buildable acres in the if the town wants Doc Barnes Road extended from Horseshoe Bar Road to our property eastward towards King Road. As early as just a couple of years ago, we were in contract with the old Village at Loomis people to sell Doc Barnes property off of our property, basically taking 1/3 of it for no more than we paid for it and not a dime more. So, as we understand, this was important not only to the village, developers, but also to the town to get that Doc Barnes Road in. I've talked ad nauseum to Sean about this and Mary Beth, and even all the way back to Rick Angelosi. In either case, we have 2 acres on a hard intersection of Horseshoe Bar Road and Doc Barnes Road, or there will be no Doc Barnes Road, and we're going to be an outparcel retail of the Raley's Commercial Plaza as a satellite retail, most likely facing Raley's. If Doc Barnes goes in, we are hoping to gain access to and from the Raleigh Center via Doc Barnes Road between Burger King and Starbucks on a new Doc Barnes Road, so that folks won't be able to go out and be forced out onto Horseshoe Bar Road and then access back into Raley's, which could be hazardous. In either case, I honestly don't see residential as being a good fit here, and we only want to be on par with the Raley's GC designation and the same GC designation as the other 2 gateway properties that abut to the Taylor Road Town Center and the core area shown on the master plan map 3.1. We've owned this property for about 6 years and have always been neighborly neighbors and open to Doc Barnes Road, possibly running through our property. We only ask for a little reciprocation, and we see that our designation should be consistent with the GC designated and GC zoned properties next door. From all I've seen, read, learned, and experienced in highest and best use policy, we are not in a TC area. We're in a general commercial area, a gateway area. Your consideration is appreciated.
Thank you, Vinyl. And I have a quick question for you. What, you are TC now, you want to be GC. What is the difference that's making it impossible for you to get what you need there? In other words, what will you do with a GC that you can't do now?
We don't have anything on the table, and I don't have anything in mind at this time, but I can tell you that at one point, I will just say that we had a very nice restaurant, like a Pete's Coffee. I've got a Pete's Coffee in my shopping center in El Dorado Hills that wanted to do a drive-through. And I was thinking about a beautiful area. I had renderings of it, gorgeous, Loomis cannery style buildings with the drive-through and so forth, and possibly doing that. But we couldn't do it because you can't allow a drive-through on a TC, but on general commercial you can. The same thing goes with the bank. I'm on the U.S. Bank Advisory Council, and I built a U.S. bank. Matter of fact, there's only been 2 U.S. banks in Sacramento built in the last 10 years. I built one in El Dorado Hills. They said was probably the best looking branch in their company. And the second one, Denton Kelly and I built in Rockland. We wouldn't be able to put that on that property because that's also a drive-through. So, the funny thing is that even with TC, I could put a retail plaza on this property. I could stick, affordable housing on top of it and throw in a Subway sandwich shop and a 7-Eleven and a laundromat, but I'm not doing that. I have no interest in that whatsoever. I want to build something that's going to be absolutely in line with the historic nature of Loomis and do something that's going to be good for this town, as well as something that's going to pencil for us. And I can compete and have the same shots at tenants as the Rayleigh Shopping Center. Because I honestly do believe at the end of the day, either we're going to be on a 2-acre intersection, the town's going to get Doc Barnes Road, and we're going to be at a hard corner. That's a general commercial site, or we're not going to. We're going to pick up that extra acre. We'll keep our 3 acres, and we're going to have property that's going to be facing Rayleigh's and be part of that plaza with reciprocal access. I just see general commercial as being the place where it just needs to be. And everything that I've read, I could be wrong here because I'm not an expert on Loomis's general plan or master plan, but over the years, I've looked at this and just couldn't understand how this was zoned TC. And I've asked, several officials up there, and they haven't really known yet exactly what that's about. Also, we're also limited on the size of buildings. You can't build over 10,000 feet. Well, you can build a 10,000 foot Dollar General. I don't want to do that either. But I want to just have the flexibility of being a general commercial site when the site calls for it, highest and best use. That's how I see it.
Okay, fair enough. Committee members, some questions for Vinyl?
Randy?
Mary Beth, can I get back onto this Zoom so I can see you guys instead of this? How do I get back to being able to visualize you guys?
Oh, Christy.
You should. Are you seeing like a film
map
of?
I'm seeing a girl plank up, and it says take a health and wellness break on Zoom.
You're not in the in the gallery.
Maybe do you see at the bottom of your screen? Do you see the blue?
Yeah. I see the blue chat thing. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. Post attendees Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and I don't want to.
On the top right corner, there's a square that says view. Click that and then go to gallery. Is that better?
Yeah, there is nothing here.
I think you're one farther out into where the connection point is and not in the webinar page.
All right, so let's go ahead and just move forward. I'll pretend like I'm with you and I can hear you at least.
You can see you.
Okay.
All right, so Randy has his hand up, I think. Go ahead, Randy.
Yep. So my question is for our consultants. What is the downside to the town of Loomis if it's changed from TC to GC?
Mark, do you want to take that one on, or Lucy? At this point in time, we do have that site designated for some of our high density housing. So if we change the designation, we're going to have to find another site to put that housing on.
What Andy just said. Of course, we did just spend quite a bit of time talking about a potential site for some higher density housing. So there might be an opportunity to have one hand shake the other. So, but that's really the only change that we would have to accommodate is to allow for the additional units somewhere else.
So the difference between TC and GC in terms of numbers of houses is what?
27.
Yeah, it's 27. It cuts the density in half.
Okay.
However, we can, Mary Beth, can you hear me?
Yes.
Remember we had that conversation. I said, what if I asked for a -20 designation, but keep it GC? Why wouldn't we be able to do that? And you said you'd possibly consider that and throw that up. Nobody's really asked.
That was going to be my question, is if the one site comes in with the 20 units per acre, would that be applicable to all GC sites?
Yes,
Yeah.
you have to be consistent with your designations.
So that would increase our densities across the board, even though there's not a whole lot left in CG that hasn't been built, but it would at least allow that flexibility going forward.
That would solve your the guy that we just talked to, Mike. That would solve his problem too.
Anybody else have some questions?
Well, I don't see that we would want to redesignate all our whole GC corridor as high density. I really don't see that we'd want to do that.
No.
I'm looking, this is Jean, I'm looking at, let's see, my map, a paper map dated 2019, and I was surprised. It looks to me like that it's not just these two parcels, his and I guess Paul Johnson's next to him. And it's not just those two parcels that are TC, but the whole area there is TC, going along there, as well as the strip on Taylor. But if you look at Horseshoe Bar, most of that is TC, as well as I guess what South Walnut. But it's the ones moving up from this property toward Taylor. If you look both sides of the street, they're TC. So it's, yes, this is a bigger piece, and the other ones are smaller, but it's not like this is all by itself the only TC property in there. It's really part of the whole, that whole area that's designated TC.
But I think in this instance, Vinyl's TC would be adjacent to the GC and not affect the other TC pink parcels. They would remain TC.
Well, wouldn't it possibly affect Paul Johnson's next to him? And
Correct.
then what if the other ones wanted that as well? The ones, I guess they're mostly developed, but there are those, individual houses that are zoned for commercial. They're still residential right now. So are we looking at redoing the whole thing?
I wouldn't think so. I think you're looking at one request for that one parcel to convert it to GC.
Right. It's the adjacent to the existing GC.
I'm looking to be a satellite of Rayleigh's.
Question for Vinyl.
Yes, sir.
So under the existing, what do you really get out of this if it's changed from TC to GC? What is a real benefit to you?
I think the biggest benefit to me is the ability to do drive-through, because as we've moved into the pandemic and we were 2 years into this thing, being a member of the International Council of Shopping Centers and doing the studies that I've been doing and the experience I have, drive-throughs aren't going anywhere. They're exploding. And even you're going to be even seeing grocery stores allow for lanes with drive-through so people can come and pick up their groceries and do stuff without dedicating parking spaces and having their employees come out and deliver. It's part of the landscape. It's what we're seeing. And, it's not going anywhere. There's a change in the retail environment that's going on these days. So, there's other little quinky dink things as well. For instance, anything vehicular, like O'Reilly's Auto Parts, that would be part of a shopping center. They can't, that's not going to fly at all either. There's plenty of things that you can put into a TC designation that is lowbrow, you might say, if you wanted to do that. So there's plenty of that. But there's also more flexibility in GC for the developer to be able to maneuver and get a tenant mix that I think might benefit moving forward on a development.
Question here for the town staff. Would the town at the planning process point of an application have the flexibility to work with a proposal such as vinyl, which involved a drive-through? And what would that look like?
Are you asking that with its current zoning as TC?
Correct.
I don't think it's allowed.
Yeah, so under the existing TC land use designation, drive-throughs are not allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Greg has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I want to throw my 2 cents worth in here, and maybe Vinyl's going to probably disagree, but the idea of the drive-throughs, and obviously you've researched the scope of the impact of drive-throughs, and it's a good business model for you. Personally, I'd love to see you put a nice Pete's in there without a drive-through. There's a Pete's in the Fountains over in Roseville, and that's one of my favorite places. I think it's beautiful. I think they do a good business. Starbucks and Rayleigh Centers doesn't have a drive-through, and drive-throughs to me are becoming problematic, probably due to their popularity, and that you have real queuing issues. And we've already got 2 drive-throughs. We got the Burger King and the Taco Bell in Rayleigh Center. Burger King doesn't do a lot of business, so there's not a queuing issue. Taco Bell, so sometimes it is, but you go down to the Starbucks and Walmart and they're blocking cars, they're blocking parking, and it's a mess. And I think that corner for drive-through really would be problematic because of queuing issues. I might really love to see a nice Pete's restaurant like you're describing, and I think your buildings are wonderful, but if I can convince you to consider doing something like that without a drive-through. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Can I respond, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a thing called a use in search of a site, and then you got sites in search of uses. And unfortunately, we're in Loomis. The Loomis demographics is to the point where we're limited in the things that we can get. I actually, if you ask, I think Sean probably knows, I was even involved in the economic analysis for the studies of retail during the Village at Loomis when they were considering density and whether to put a town center where Hidden Grove is now. That includes our project. And the analysis showed that the demographics in a 1, 3, and 5 mile radius of Loomis just didn't justify very many national retailers wanting to come into Loomis. And so just that being said, I couldn't handle 20 acres or 30 acres, but when it comes to 2 acres, I obviously would want to put in something really nice. I've got, matter of fact, I do have, I don't know if you can see that.
Share your screen.
Oh, God. Where does it say share?
Down at the bottom.
Yeah, I don't have any shares.
It's in a green bubble. It says share screen at the very bottom next to chat.
Okay, so I just need to go back to, I never like Zoom. I just don't do enough of it. But I just can tell you that I've got a couple of renderings of a really nice retail plaza that does have a drive-through with umbrellas around, and it's, you know, and it's got the history of Loomis kind of as a reflection in the buildings itself. But anyway, that being said, since I don't have anybody on tap right now to talk to you about, I can't tell you what that would be. I just know that I just feel more comfortable being next to Rayleigh's, not knowing if we're going to have a Doc Barnes Road there, or possibly even having buildings there that is going to possibly look like Rayleigh's, that we're off use. I'm not zoned the same as Rayleigh's, you know, and all those uses. I would just like to be zoned general commercial right along with what I've actually read in the general plan. You know, it said the properties next to Rayleigh Shopping Center will be zoned general commercial. It's seemed pretty, you know, I'm not an expert, but it seemed pretty simple to me.
Bonnie, you have your hand up?
I do. And this question is for Jean and Ramona. And so if you could help jar my memory, because I do remember we had the discussion the last time, was part of the TC designation is kind of the transition into the downtown core to promote that pedestrian-friendly, walkable community that the town master plan had really tried to emphasize and build. That would be the first question. And then the second one to you, Vinyl, would be with your property, would Doc Barnes go on the, what would that be? The southern or the northern? So what
That's a great question. Doc Barnes Road, and we've been talking about this ad nauseum for about 6 years now, which I'm an advocate for. You can ask Sean and Mary Beth this. Yep. Never had a problem with saying, I don't want you to take my property, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is good for everybody. Okay, Doc Barnes Road would split, would go take our southern property about 130 feet or so. Brett Snipes was our engineer at the time that figured this out. And it would go eastbound between Burger King and Starbucks and our property and move towards King Road. That's why when Hidden Grove came in, I was kind of shocked that they had bailed off of Doc Barnes Road, because I didn't see how their project could work without it. So now Hidden Grove has come in. They've caused a lot to question what the circulation is going to be. And we have a future traffic study that is going to ultimately tell them what's going to happen here. But there is that possibility that they're going to win that, and their access into Hidden Grove is going to come down from Library Road. That's going to be their access into all those 300 or 400, unit housing. If that's the case, it's possible that we may not get Doc Barnes Road. It's possible that the town might go into an auction with us and take some time to think about whether or not they need Doc Barnes Road. That's what we're dealing with. I'm trying to be a developer and deliver something for this town, but I don't know if I got 2 acres or if I got 3 acres, and if we do, then I'd like to engage with Rayleigh's and get reciprocal access into their plaza and start working in that direction, or realize that we have a 2-acre lighted intersection that might show up. And if that's in either case, that's a general commercial corner. That's highest and best use for that site. That's how I see it. But yes, that's the Doc Barnes Road would ride right along our property line between Rayleigh's and our property.
Okay, thank you. And then Jean and Ramona, would you be able to speak about the purpose of the TC designation? Because I thought I recall the discussion being that it really was to try to promote the walkability, and which is one of the reasons why they didn't want to have drive-throughs there. Is that correct or not correct? Thanks.
Jane, did you want to go first on that one? You've been here longer and you're on planning commission. So
I don't.
Up to you.
The promoting pedestrian, it was kind of implied in the kind of the building standards and having things that were up against the street rather than rather than parking lots in front and things like that. So it was to be pedestrian oriented. And I would say in general, after Rayleigh's went in with 2 drive-throughs, I think I'm surprised there isn't anything in the general plan or planning or the zoning, but other than the list that it doesn't include drive-throughs there, but there's kind of been a general feeling that we did not want drive-throughs in Loomis. That the modern sort of look of Rayleigh's with drive-throughs was kind of where we wanted to stop. And I think there was a proposal, that little red square across the street, that did not go through, I think in part because there was supposedly a drive-through something going there, and it did not fly at all. And I do think Greg has a good point of congestion, especially if that ends up with that being Doc Barnes Drive there. And I think the town, I haven't studied thoroughly the recommendations for that Transportation Circulation Committee, but I'm assuming, and maybe wrongly so, that we're still hoping to get a right-of-way easement or something for Doc Barnes Drive, because to me, it's not going to make a lot of sense to put all that traffic through up at Library Drive. So I guess I'm not seeing that we should be giving up that possibility. And I'm just concerned that it doesn't really fit to put drive-through traffic right in that area.
I agree.
And if that's the main consideration for changing it, that's not something that I think is of value to the town, particularly to change it just to get a drive-through there.
Yeah, I agree with that statement too. And yeah, for the town commercial, I believe it was to really start acting as the transition, general commercial at Rayleigh's is what it is. Not sure exactly, from what I understand historically, that it kind of ended up with parking in the front, even though it not necessarily was supposed to. But anyway, that the front facing commercial would be what you would like as you start heading towards town and keep it more walkable. And I think it's kind of like the other issue is it seems kind of premature to change it into general commercial without really knowing what Doc Barnes Road is going to do with the Hidden Grove development there, and not knowing how that circulation element is going to be going through there. It sounds like it's going to possibly be substantially different, perhaps, than what the village proposal was. The town commercial that was proposed on that site, kind of in combination with the village, I actually thought that was a pretty well thought out, smaller commercial development that would have nice character to it and wouldn't be a traffic impact. But yeah, drive-through kind of adds a whole nother complexity to the circulation part of it because of the stacking up of the vehicles rather than parking and walking.
The stacking would be completely on site, and I don't even know if it would be drive-through to begin with. The town center designation stops at Library from Horseshoe Bar and Taylor Road going south. And then we're in an area where now we're TC, but and in this area, it's designated as a gateway area, but the other 2 gateways on King Road, as well as Sierra College Boulevard headed to downtown, are both zoned general commercial. They could do the same thing.
Yeah, but they don't have immediate adjacency to the town center. That's that tight. The distance between 80 and Horseshoe Bar and Taylor Road is quite a bit different than as you travel the longer stretch of Taylor Road from Rockland on out into the Newcastle area. So it's just a lot more compact of an area to deal with than the other two gateway areas.
I understand. If there were a drive-through that were selected for that, any of that drive-through would have a stacking lane that is purely internal to the site.
And would it access off of Horseshoe Bar?
No, the main access would be Horseshoe Bar is only a right in, right out. We know that's going in. The main access is going to be on Doc Barnes Road or a drive that council is going to make us build between us and Rayleigh's. And that's when we're going to have the opportunity to get reciprocal access with Rayleigh's. So no, there's never, no matter what you put here, it's only going to be a right in, right out on Horseshoe Bar Road. Mark my words, ask Sean.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Yeah, there's no way you could do anything else but that.
No.
So, but yeah, again, I think it's just kind of a premature thing to consider right now, when we don't know what Doc Barnes Road is going to actually do, or if there's even going to be one. So.
Vinyl, you did just say that if there's no Doc Barnes, then you would put something there, right?
Well, if there's no Doc Barnes, we have an extra acre. And based on 25% gross leasable area, an acre is 43,000 square feet. You can actually put an extra 10,000 feet on there. But we can't do anything. We're just talking designation. I can't build, regardless of what happens tonight. I can't move forward on a site plan that until I know whether or not we have an issue with Doc Barnes Road, or what we're going to do with that. That's been our big holding pattern for years. It's cost us plenty. We can't build a site plan without knowing about Doc Barnes Road. It would be terrible if we move forward and sunk hundreds of thousands of dollars into plans, and construction drawings, only to find out that Doc Barnes Road is going to be needed. I clearly understand that the town cannot approve of anything, site plan wise, until we know whether we have Doc Barnes Road or not.
Maybe it would be terrible of us to move forward, though, on changing it when we don't, any of us know what's going on with Doc Barnes Road.
I just feel that whether it's going to be 2 acres on a hard corner or part of Rayleigh's, it's all the same.
I think from, my perspective, I agree with that. Whether or not Doc Barnes goes through there, Vinyl he either has 2 acres or he has 3 acres. So he either has that extra 10,000 square feet like he was talking about, or he doesn't. He'll design whatever he builds there around what the available land that he has. Council, I think, has made it pretty clear that the idea of having Doc Barnes go through there is important. And so, we've had that conversation with Vinyl in the past. So I think that the kind of like crystallized from what I'm understanding, I think that the concern is, well, I guess it's kind of twofold. Traffic backing up if there's a drive-through, and then also the loss of potential housing site. Are those the 2 key issues that the committee is concerned about?
I'm concerned about losing the 27 units or whatever it is, because we have to go and find another place, and we can't just assume that it's going to be up with the Alice's fruit stand area. We can't make that assumption.
Certainly
we have
not.
Already a number of other places. I forget how many units we still have to find places for. I hate giving up any more of them that we have now.
Right. So right now we need to find a total of 3 acres. If we lost this site because we lost the 27, we would need to find 4 acres instead of 3. Is that right, Christy? You have those numbers right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think we have another 4 houses too that we needed to add because of some changes made.
So going from 3 acres, needing to find 3 acres, needing to find 4. I'm not, overly concerned about that 1 acre additional that we need to find. We already have to find 3. If we have to find 4, that's not a killer. I mean, in my opinion, So I think that the loss of housing is one thing. Somebody was asking about, why we have the TC in the first place and the preventing drive-throughs coming in through the TC. That's exactly right. From my understanding, especially if you look downtown, if we allow drive-throughs on the TC designations, and we could potentially have drive-throughs all along Taylor Road, and that would cause obviously significant queuing problems. So, I mean, that's part of the reason why the TC has that in there. The question is, in my mind, is Vinyl's property being designated TC, is that the proper designation for it, or should it be GC, right? I mean, that's kind of the crux of the thing. If we lose the 1 acre of additional housing, I think we can pick that up somewhere. We'll figure that out. But does the committee feel that keeping it TC is more important? I think that's the big question, in my mind, at least.
Mhm. Anybody else have any comments? Beth? Do you have any comments, Beth?
I think right now, Taylor Road between the elementary school and, down past Horseshoe Bar is pretty walkable. I like the direction that we have out there. And I think, to Jean's point, that, if we want Horseshoe Bar Road to be walkable, which it almost partially is, going down to the Vets Hall and maybe the library, that we would want to encourage the TC to remain and not to encourage more general commercial along that corridor. That's where I would have a hang up. I'm not really overly concerned about 3 versus 4 acres of housing. I think walkability is kind of nice in that area.
Okay.
What would stop a GC zone commercial from being walkable?
If there's a drive-through, I wouldn't really walk. Like, for example, I wouldn't want to continue walking down the path and go into, the Burger King and Rayleigh's. That's not really ideal.
One thing about Burger King and Taco Bell is they dump out onto Horseshoe Bar Road. There's no possibility of my site doing that. I mean, we're not going to be dumping anything out onto a right in, right out. It stays internal, and the main access to the plaza is going to be on a site that is away from Horseshoe Bar Road. There is a right in, right out. One lane is most likely going to be coming out of our property, coming in, probably on a slow down lane. And then there'll be one lane leaving leaving Paul Johnson's property. Because Paul also knows that it's going to end up just being a right in, right out at that location. Our focus is going to be facing Rayleigh's on a new drive and possibly a new Doc Barnes Road. With walkability, I don't have any issues with that whatsoever. Any shopping center should have walkability from, I could see from Doc Barnes Road walking past our site, walking up to Library Drive, through Library Drive up to Taylor Road. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how it should be. Matter of fact, I just got approvals on another very, very large 180,000 square foot shopping center in El Dorado Hills, where we created walkability from nearby residents to our shopping center on Latrobe Road with a full traffic signal and a bike lane.
I have a question for staff on the TD zoning. Does that allow for drive-throughs?
Not on TC, no.
No, TD,
TD,
and across the
Oh.
freeway.
Tourist destination.
I'm pretty sure it does, Mary Beth. I can hear her flipping through pages, but because tourist commercial and the idea of having fast food restaurants, you would need to drive through for those. But Mary Beth's looking it up.
Yeah. You could hear me turning pages.
I can.
Yeah, drive-through retail is allowed in the CT district.
Okay. And then Vinyl, what other types of businesses would you consider for that if it was moved to GC besides Pete's?
It's possible that we would end up going with a larger grocery store. I know that the Whole Foods of the world and the new Amazon, unveiling can tend to be 15 to 20,000 square feet. Trader Joe's are 15,000 square feet. That's not allowed. You ever ended up with, anything larger than that, you wouldn't be allowed to put that on the site either. And then there's, like for instance, O'Reilly Auto Parts or anything automotive related, which I'm not crazy about to begin with. Just other things, but I'd have to go through the land use map to find out, for instance, I have a partner, Jim Rada, who owns Pottery World. I put him on 3 acres in Rockland, and we built a 30,000 foot building there. And then also 12,000 feet in El Dorado Hills on 1 acre. We wouldn't be able to put him in Loomis.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Is there any members of the public that have any questions or comments at this time?
Miguel, go ahead.
Thank you. As far as walkability, since the access to whatever this piece of property, if it was going to be a drive-through, would be off of Doc Barnes, you could have a sidewalk coming down Horseshoe Bar that people could walk on. So you wouldn't be walking across the traffic lane going in and out. My only big concern is, because it would probably be a drive-through, is the queuing. If a design could be shown that it could handle most of the traffic, then I think it's a good use of this property. And that's the major issue. I think it should be GC. And if it goes GC, I'm almost certain it would be a drive-through of some type. And the whole question is there enough room the owner could determine that to keep the traffic off the streets? That's my only comment.
Thank you. And then one more question, Vinyl. You stated in the general plan that the parcel north of Rayleigh's was supposed to be GC. What part of the general plan did you read that from?
That was under item G, policies for specific areas under community development land uses. And it was item 2B.
Yeah. Trying to find that. Do you have page numbers on that?
Yeah, it's Roman numeral 3-17.
Thank you.
Final, was that the town center master plan by any chance? The one in 92?
No, this is July 2001 general plan.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
If you have an older copy, Jan, it's page 39.
Oh, thank you.
And my goodness, I mean, before, the Loomis people came in and threw a wrecking ball around in the old general plan, there was so much more general commercial in this area that just got flipped over to help out the Hidden Grove people. We're talking about 2 to 3 acres here with no access, with no dumping out onto Horseshoe Bar Road, with the exception of 1 lane, right in, right out.
It's pretty clearly written in here.
So that's in the existing general plan, you said? The existing general plan says this should be, and then yet in the land use section, it doesn't carry it over into the map?
Yeah, it says, item 2, right? General commercial office person north of Rayleigh's. The planning of proposed development on these currently vacant properties should be carefully coordinated and integrated to ensure adequate access and circulation. And they would be zoned general commercial or office professional. Kind of how I'm reading it.
All of which got thrown out basically with the village, and then Hidden Grove gets to come in and take over what the village had gotten into our plan.
Yep.
So it was GC before? Or was it, oh, it was office. What was it?
GC.
It was GC, many acres. That was where the bigger town center was supposed to be instead of higher density back in the day.
Got it.
Right, the office was over around by the library.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So this just, I see, this just got, okay. Well, I feel like you have made a pretty good argument, and I feel that, a GC zoning would fit there, especially because it used to be, and I'm not opposed to drive-throughs as long as it's definitely not going to affect the traffic, and it sounds like it wouldn't be affecting Horseshoe Bar Road. It would just have to go back up between those two parcels. So
I also promise you on my father's life, who is my best friend, I don't have any proposal for a drive-through. And it may very well not be a drive-through. But if it is, we still have to go through design review. And I know everything must stay internally. The main entrance must be on a new drive that does not include Horseshoe Bar Road. Where in the subcommittee, they said that landowners should always embrace each other side by side and try to, hold thy neighbor as friends and be compatible. And so I feel like, honestly, as much the proposal that I made, if I could get GC to sing Kumbaya with Rayleigh sitting right next to me, I love it. If I could keep that -20 on there, where we may be able to work with the Hidden Grove or possibly even Paul Johnson and end up just scrapping the GC and doing the residential. We might end up doing that. But in the meantime, we've got to wait to see whether or not we're going to get Doc Barnes Road. And that's why, regardless of what happens tonight, I'm stuck. At least I know, that I have flexibility to work with my guys to the north, to the east, and to the west.
Did you say that people would go in off of Doc Barnes, but they would exit on the other
It's
side
called
of
a right in, right out. Yeah, you would not be able to cross. You would not be able to leave this shopping center, this retail plaza, and cross the double yellow line going towards the freeway. It's too close to the intersection of Doc Barnes Road or that section. That's how I see it. Maybe Sean's got a different idea.
That's right. The exit or entrance onto Horseshoe Bar will have to be a right in, right out.
That's it.
The other thing I wanted to reiterate something that Vinyl said earlier too, that, right now there's no site plan. You don't have a project in front of you. If he proposes something that, and I know this wouldn't happen, but let's say that he proposed something that had a drive-through on it, and the entrance to that drive-through was directly off Horseshoe Bar Road, and there was going to be a queuing problem, we wouldn't allow that to go through. It needs to go through design review, and it might have to go through. Depending on what it is, it could, require an additional traffic analysis on top of that. So,
and boy, is that expensive.
Yeah, right. But we wouldn't be able to approve something that would be having a queuing problem out onto Horseshoe Bar anyway.
That's right.
And because you don't have a project before you to look at where the layout is going to be, or if there was a drive-through, where that would be, we don't have anything like that right now. And so it would be, we shouldn't really be speculating on if traffic was going to back up or not.
And I have
we honestly don't know.
I also have no prospective tenants because nobody would touch TC anyway. But at least if I'm GC, I've got a fighting chance.
So just to be clear, though, if I recall correctly, the GC that was changed for the village was actually the RMH and the RH. The TC that you have was the designation. I mean, this is the original designation, if I remember correctly, because we know that part never changed.
It was all the general commercial that was around us.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think on, you definitely have been working closely with Sean. And I know that you've shown a lot of good faith effort, during the village and during this time. I think my big concern is that, let's just say something happens to you and you no longer were the owner of this parcel. And with the other allowable uses of GC, which if somebody else was owning it, then they would be able to put something that I'm not sure the people who put a lot of work into the general plan that wanted to create this entry into the downtown core. The GC has some allowable uses that I'm pretty sure the town would go ballistic about, and so even though you would have, you wouldn't do anything like that. If something were to happen and someone else was the owner, the town would be in a vulnerable position then. I think I would be much more comfortable, again, having Sean continue to work with you so that once there is more clarity with Hidden Grove and with Doc Barnes, once we know what we're really able or what we're really dealing with, and then being able to kind of revisit to find out what would make the most sense for both you and the town.
Like Sean said, if this were zone GC, it still needs to go through review. We still have parameters in which we cannot access full movement onto Horseshoe Bar Road. And if there were any issues with it, it would be flagged in the building department. And then as far as uses go, being afraid of uses, there are uses in the current TC that we can put in now that the town would not be happy about. It's just the way it is. There's always the downside to this stuff. You could always stick your Subway sandwiches and your laundromats in with affordable housing on top. It's easy to do. But, you get shady developers out there that can do that even in its current zoning. So, just keep that in mind. You do the right thing or you do the wrong thing. I'm not saying that what I bring in would be exactly palatable to everybody in the town of Loomis, but it's we want to have something that is going to fit both for the benefit of Loomis, but also is something that is feasible to move forward with for the developer. And then, kind of a win-win. It's like what Mike said before in the last presentation. You got to do something that's going to be a win-win. I just see that what this is, where it is, what I've read in the general plan, what I've read in the master plan, and the history of this and where it's located, and what I know of highest and best use, I think we all know this is a general commercial site.
That's your opinion. Sean, could you give us any idea when we might be finding out if the Hidden Grove plan for the circulation through Library Drive is going to fly or not? Because that's a big factor here. And if it is, that's one thing. If it isn't, and we have to be back looking at something else like Doc Barnes Drive, that's a whole different picture. So do you have any clues of when that might be coming, information coming on that?
I won't know the traffic study. I mean, that'll come with the traffic study, and that's probably at least, I don't know, Andy, like 6
I think we're
months at least.
Yep, I think so.
How long?
Yeah, and at least 6 months. But you need to remember too that they don't own. So Hidden Grove doesn't own the TC properties, right? If it turns out that, and because it's an SB 330 project, I don't know that we have an opportunity to force them to build that connection point to Horseshoe Bar through Vinyl's property. I think that the town could pay for that, right? And then we might have to do that. I'm not really sure. We have to see what the traffic study shows.
Well,
If
the
their
traffic
project,
sh-
if their
if the-
traffic study shows that they need that using Library Drive the way that they have it, without having a daylight up to King Road up on the top, I don't think that the traffic study is going to show that that would work. But they do have options in their project that connects Library Drive to King, and I don't know. I don't know how, because they have a connection between Horseshoe Bar and King going through the whole project to get traffic from one side to the other. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to say, well, you also have to buy that acre of property from Vinyl and connect to Horseshoe Bar on our alignment for Doc Barnes. I don't know yet. We don't know.
And we know for sure that they're allowed to do that center crossing of the wetlands, even though Army Corps, I thought, did not approve that on the first round with the village and made them move it.
I don't know if they can do that or not. I don't know the answer to that.
We haven't done the environmental documentation yet. It hasn't gone out to the agencies yet. We don't even have a complete application yet. So there's a lot of answers yet to be coming, and I think we're quite a ways off.
And while I understand the importance to make sure that there's a connection between Horseshoe Bar and King, and we're not supposed to talk about Hidden Grove because that's not on the agenda, and so we got to be kind of careful about what we're talking about. There is in the town circulation element a connection between Horseshoe Bar and King that follows the Doc Barnes Drive alignment that was in the village project. That's in the circulation element. The question is, who's going to pay for that, right? And I don't know the answer to that yet. We can go to Vinyl and say, we're going to force you or require you to set aside that alignment, that 1 acre alignment, but eventually we have to pay for that, or somebody else is going to have to pay for it, because we can't just, even if we eminent domain it, we still have to pay for it. We can't just take somebody's property and not compensate them for it. So, I don't think that we should get hung up on whether or not Doc Barnes is going to have to go through for this change on the land use designation, because if it does have to go through, we're going to be required to have him, he's going to have to set it aside. He knows that he's going to have to set it aside one way or the other, potentially. And once we find that out, that just basically decides how big his shopping center is. It doesn't really matter whether it's a 3 acre or a 2 acre site, as far as what he's asking for. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense.
You made perfect sense to me, Sean.
So we will have more information once we get the response back from the developer that we're not supposed to be talking about, right? But
no, the information will come with the environmental document, which will have the traffic study in it. So, so the process is we have submitted a letter back to them saying they're not complete. There's no time frame for them to get us a complete application. Once we do get their materials back and we determine it complete, once that happens, then we have 60 days and then the EIR, and it has to circulate. So like we were talking, we're 6 months off before getting some of those answers.
But if I remember right, isn't there 3 alternatives?
There's 6 alternatives.
Yeah. So we do know that one of the 6 has to be picked if it gets passed, right?
Right.
Yep.
Right. And none of them show the connection to Doc Barnes. So if the town through Doc Barnes, it shows a connection using Library Drive to King. But if the town is going to require that connection to be made along the Doc Barnes, where the Doc Barnes alignment is, I'm not sure yet if we would be able to require the developer to pay for that, or if it would be the town paying for that through traffic mitigation fees and other stuff that we have. I don't know yet.
Okay, I think we have a public comment. Miguel, did you have a comment?
Go ahead, Miguel.
Okay, I had a question of the developer. In and out over where in Campus Commons, it just comes in and out of one street. Would you be able to have, if you have a drive-through, it just come entering and exiting on Barnes Drive?
The answer is absolutely right. That's how it's going to be.
Well, you said there's a right only on Horseshoe Bar.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have them dumping out onto Horseshoe Bar Road. Okay, that main entrance, what it would end up doing in a hypothetical situation is, first off, it's not just about a drive-through. You know, you think about McDonald's and all this stuff, but we failed to think about, you know, other coffee restaurants like Starbucks leaving its present location and wanting to get a little bit more space and possibly doing something there. Okay, but anyway, the way that my site would work out is you would be internal in the site and it would wrap around the building and then it would dump out back into the shopping center.
Okay, thank you.
Not on the road. It would dump out into the shopping center.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. Is there any more public comment?
I have another question then, with kind of trying to get a sense of it. To me, part of the town center designation was to really ensure that any commercial that is built on that site would have more of a building facing Horseshoe Bar. So it has more of a traditional town look and not a strip mall look. So not sure what you're talking about of having it being internal and that it would wrap around the building. So would people be seeing cars lined up internally, but yet visible on Horseshoe Bar? Or would your, to me, I think the designating it general commercial, kind of like along what Bonnie was saying, is I know you're going to be very sensitive to it, but if it goes general commercial and there's a different owner at some point, if nothing happens and there's a different owner, that we would end up with kind of the strip mall look extended beyond Rayleigh's.
I found
it. Definitely not in tune with that, because that really does, it doesn't mean it's not walkable, but it doesn't mean it's a very pleasant walk either. I walk that stretch actually a lot as I head into town. I actually park at the edge of Rayleigh's and kind of make my way through Taco Bell and Burger King, but then I enjoy the rest of my walk, into town to take care of the other things I can do in town, or vice versa. Sometimes I flip it the other way around. I park in town and actually pick up a few things in Rayleigh's and walk back. So I do see the potential for that Horseshoe Bar to actually, if we actually calm the traffic down, to be even more enjoyable walk along Horseshoe Bar.
I agree. And if I can I speak for a moment?
Sure.
Okay, do you see this view along Horseshoe Bar Road and Doc Barnes Drive?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you see my cursor by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the Doc Barnes Road here. This is the intersection of Doc Barnes and Horseshoe Bar Road. Horseshoe Bar Road going into town would come this way. The sidewalks are here that meander through. The only thing that you're going to have to get across is a right in, right out here, and you continue moving forward up to Taylor Road. As you do a drive-through, obviously drive-throughs like the corner, we have a very, very long parcel. Okay, especially with Doc Barnes Road, we've got 2 acres that's very long, that stretches past Starbucks, basically, with 80% of my frontage facing Rayleigh's, not Doc Barnes Road. This building over here is actually Paul Johnson's property. Our property are only these 2 buildings right here. That's how narrow it is. Okay, so that's here on Horseshoe Bar Road. This would be the right end, passing the light going north and pulling in. Pulling out would be on Paul Johnson's property, going right towards Taylor Road. If you're going to go and put, say, a drive-through Starbucks or whatever drive-through you're going to get, you would end up coming down and wrapping around the building and then dumping back out into your shopping center, with the main entrance being on this side and not on the main thoroughfare here. And I'm hoping that we can get reciprocal access to Rayleigh's across the street with some kind of a, engineered lane that you could pull into and then whip into Rayleigh's without the need to, there's going to be a lot of residents behind us, multifamily and all that Hidden Grove stuff, most likely, or somebody else. And we still have that same concept of wanting to have walkability, where these folks are going to want to go into Rayleigh's or go into our shopping center without having to go out onto this main Horseshoe Bar Road. I'm still carrying that, even though the Loomis folks are gone. That's how feasibly this thing needs to work.
I thought you said that they would go in and out off of Doc Barnes, but maybe I'm confused. It looks like they could go in, but they have to go out next to Paul Johnson's place. How?
This is just a concept. Take
your cursor and show us how they don't go out, how they go in and out on Doc Barnes.
Okay, this is a concept photo from Borges that I took to the International Council of Shopping Centers. This is not a civil engineered site. It's just my idea of what we see, so I can let tenants have a visual aspect of what it is that we're doing. This is actually going to be wider. This is looking way down the road, where you're going to have an in and an out at this location. And you're only going to have an a right in, right out on Horseshoe Bar Road. Your main entrance, however that's engineered, is going to be on Doc Barnes Road. There is also a possibility there might be a road behind our site, shrinking our site even more between the Hidden Grove folks and us, and we might ask for another access back between those two buildings. It just depends. That there's a myriad of ways that you can work this, but we do know that it's not going to be a full movement out onto Horseshoe Bar Road.
But it will potentially have, all the people will have to, coming from Horseshoe Bar would have a potential left turn across the traffic on Doc Barnes. I guess by then we'll know how much traffic to expect on Doc Barnes.
That is correct, right?
There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way that the town will allow a left-hand turn into that project off of Horseshoe Bar or a left-hand turn out because of how close it is to Doc Barnes.
And we accept that. We've known that.
Sean, I'm talking about traffic on Doc Barnes. Should Doc Barnes be busy, people will have to make a left turn to get into the drive-through place.
Potentially. Or, if there's a left-hand turn in the middle of Doc Barnes there, if there's a left-hand turn there, I don't know how that road's going to be designed. We haven't seen that. Or it could be that it's right in, right out only onto Horseshoe Bar, and it's right in, right out only onto Doc Barnes.
That would be a disaster.
Yeah. That's one of the concerns about. That's why I'm trying to make sure that folks know we don't have a site plan. This is like Vinyl said, this is a conceptual drawing that he took to show to a convention about Loomis. And, frankly, I think that having somebody go represent the town at the International Shopping Center convention is a pretty good thing for us. But, I have no idea what the site plan is going to look like. This is the first time I've seen this tonight. We've talked about all along, though, that there wouldn't be a left-hand turn into the shopping center or out of the shopping center. It has to be right in, right out off of Horseshoe Bar.
And nobody's ever contested that either.
Nope.
All right, committee, I know we're running late, but we want to make sure that we do our best with this. So what is the thought? What is the committee's overall thought? Do you want me to, I kind of feel like having a GC land use designation there is a pretty provocative idea. I am not opposed to that, but and I know some of you probably may have a different opinion. So
are you ready for a motion?
I actually think it's really important that we take a look to see what allowable uses GC would be permissible. I mean, we're talking about auto sales, building landscape materials. I mean, there, you know, I think we need to have that discussion if we're going to be changing the land use designation.
Madam Chair, I have a phone-in caller.
Okay.
With a hand raised. Dave, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I have a problem with another coffee shop. How many coffee shops are we going to have in Loomis? I thought we already have one opening up at the corner of Taylor, and there's another one that just opened. We have Starbucks. We don't need another drive-through, and we don't need another coffee shop. We have like 10 coffee shops in Loomis already. It's a great idea. It's a great picture. Love the idea, but we don't need another drive-through, and we don't need another coffee shop. We have too many coffee shops already. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. And I also want to point out too that we don't know what's going to happen with Doc Barnes. And so that's definitely something that I'm thinking about as well. So yeah. I see all the points. How about you, Beth?
Since there's a lot of unknowns in this equation, including Vinyl doesn't have anybody to fill this slot, is my understanding. So there's no exact vision. I mean, there's a general idea that, you want what's best for Loomis, and you are the current owner, but changing the designation to I believe Bonnie's point, it does lead us to be a little bit vulnerable in case the property does change hands. So my question is, when you do have somebody that actually wants to come in and there's a plan, a specific plan, how hard is it? Because I am ignorant to this process. How hard is it for a property owner outside of obviously now is the easiest time to change a land use, but outside of the general plan amendment, how difficult is it for Vinyl to come in and say, now I have this guy, we want to develop this property with X, Y, and Z. So we need the general commercial at that point, maybe 3 years from now. Is this like an undue burden that we're putting on
Beth, I really appreciate you asking that question. That's the whole reason why I'm here right now, because as long as I'm zoned and designated TC, I don't have retailers that may be straddling that line or questioning whether or not they're capable of coming in, drive-through or otherwise, national or regional or whatever it is that we may end, or banks or otherwise, that would want to go through that process. And so they would pass me up and I wouldn't even know it because they're not going to bite. At least if somebody bites and I say no, that's a great thing. But if I never knew it, it's kind of like, just between us and a fence post, I had heard that Starbucks ended up, they really wanted to move and they wanted to get out of that corner situation, and they wanted to do their concept. It was to get into something with a larger patio area with their umbrellas and a drive-through, one window, simple, or I want a grande latte and I'm down the road or whatever it is. They wanted that, just like they've been doing everywhere else. They've been moving away from those inline concepts and going towards those drive-throughs. And I understand they found that in Burger King. That's what I understand. I also believe that I thought they would have been a phenomenal use for my corner, because that's the type of drive-through I'm looking for. Okay, is a beautiful patio area with those umbrellas. I'm not adding coffee. I'm just enhancing the look of it. And I thought that would be providing something. And I had a handle on that, and I was trying to get them there, but I got knocked out of the park because I'm TC.
Another issue there, Beth, is any applicant requesting or looking to do any kind of general plan amendment zone change, the first step they have to do is go to the town council to see if they would even allow an application like that to be submitted. So that adds another layer, and then the layers of actually doing it on a smaller type parcel. The cost there would be extreme too. So our general plan points people to request these kind of changes during the general plan update.
Is there a staff recommendation on this? Sean?
I mean, from my perspective, Jan, I don't see the downside of changing it to GC, other than losing the potential for high density housing. But it's 1 acre of housing. We already have to find 3, and so you're looking for 1 more acre. And frankly, I don't think that that's putting an undue burden on us trying to find an extra acre for housing, especially when we're going to be talking about the churches down the road. I don't know. I mean, I think that focusing on the potential use of a coffee place is not like a good place to focus. I think that focusing on the something else that's going to have a drive-through isn't necessarily the right place to focus, because we don't know what's going to go in there. And even if there was a drive-through, and they're keeping all of that traffic on site as mandatory anyway, so it's not going to be, and it's not going to overly impact Horseshoe Bar Road. The other thing I'll point out, by the way, is that I understand the concern about what's allowable in GC versus what's allowable in TC. The Rayleigh Shopping Center right next door is zoned, or the designation is GC. And so if that shopping center decided, the owner of that shopping center decided to tear down Burger King, they could put in all the same stuff that they could put in if Vinyl got his request approved. Or if Rayleigh's went out of business, that could change over to something that, anything that's allowable in the zoning code. So that we have our codes, our zoning ordinances are set up with allowable uses, and we try to steer people to build something that we want and that we think will benefit the town. But at the end of the day, the property owner has the ability to build something that is allowable under the zoning code and under the general plan, unless they want to do a general plan amendment and zoning amendment. So, and as Mary Beth said, the general plan right now points people to proceed in this manner that Vinyl is proceeding, and not to do general plan amendments outside of the regular updates that we're supposed to be doing. Frankly, it literally says that we shouldn't be doing that.
Okay, Greg, you have your hand up.
Okay. I'm ready to make a motion that we change.
Sorry, excuse me, Randy. I've unmuted. Can you guys, everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. No, I would be in favor. I'd taken the chance of moving it to general commercial. I think, Vinyl's got a lot of, good thoughts and moving forward in that direction. And I'm also like to say that I'm not really concerned about losing the housing on that spot. I don't think it's good to put housing right on that area because of Horseshoe Bar Road, let alone high density. I don't think that's a good location for that. And also I would be very strict about the drive-in. I really watched that. We'd restrict it. I'd like to see where there'd be a permitting process where you could revoke the permit if it got to be a problem. So those are my thoughts on that. So I'd be in favor of general commercial. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Jean?
Bonnie asked a question about uses, and so I pulled out the charts for some of the land use charts, and what would be permitted that would not be, would be if it were changed, would be permitted auto and vehicle sales, auto rental, building and landscape materials, construction, sales and equipment, drive-through, gas station, mobile home, RV, or boat sales. And then there's some differences in the office, but I don't think those are quite as relevant probably, or general services. Actually, more are permitted with the CG in the general services than in PC. Quite a few more are permitted, or with a use permit generally, or minor use permit. But anyway, Bonnie had asked, were there differences? And yes, to some extent there are. And so we not that most of those are things it sounds like Vinyl Perkins is suggesting, but as it was mentioned, you don't, once you change it, you don't get to change it back very easily. In other words, if something came in that we didn't like, that would currently be prohibited, we're stuck with whatever it is.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Jean. Ramona.
Yeah, I have another question too. Is my understanding though that at this point that the property just to the north is not requesting, and any change that they're going to stay town center? Because originally with the village, they kind of combined efforts and ideas to have kind of like two parcels, but yet kind of one shopping center concept, and they were designing it collaboratively. So I just kind of searching to see if the general commercial then would really continue all the way up to then what would be like library and memorial hall. So because that's where I start to have definitely a much more of an issue with having general commercial possibilities go all the way up to definitely the community uses of Memorial Hall and the library. That's definitely not I'd like to kind of buffer the general commercial from those public uses.
I don't think Paul Johnson's asking for a change. Is that right, John?
That's correct.
Yeah. I don't think anybody else is.
I'd like to intervene also. I actually met with Randy Sater with at the housing element with the what's the name of the housing project?
Hidden Grove.
Yeah, with Hidden Grove. I went down to Tykert and I visited with him to see what his ideas were. And I've been completely transparent with Paul Johnson, as I have since way back when. Actually, each time I've addressed the town council, I've dragged Paul up with me. But I want to make sure that we're always on the same page. Paul and I are considered to be friends. And from what I understand, I actually met with his architect as well to see if maybe we might want to go his way. But what he's doing is, from what I understand, he's planning on putting some limited retail up front, according to what zoning he's given, which is the TC, with residential in the back. And he's working on the 20 to 30 units per acre in the back. That's what I understand. And even with Paul, what we plan on doing is I still want to have, regardless of what he does, I still want to have reciprocal access with his property. That's what the subcommittee said they wanted to strive for, and that's what I also agree with. I want reciprocal access with both Rayleigh's and Paul. So better circulation makes a better plaza.
Right. Thank you. All right, committee. Do we have any other questions? And if not, how do we move forward?
I think Randy was ready to make a motion.
Thank you. I move that we change the designation from TC to GC.
Okay. And is that correct to change, or are we just recommending the change?
It's recommended.
Yeah.
Recommending.
Yeah. And is there a second? Well, I'll second it. So let's have a roll call.
Okay. Let's see. Randy Elder,
Yes.
Jan Clark Kretz,
Yes.
Jean Wilson,
Oh,
Beth Cohen,
No.
Bonnie London.
I'm sorry, I'm a no.
All right. So it looks like it's no change. All right, everybody, and thank you, Vinyl, very much. And you know, you'll have another opportunity to talk to the Planning Commission when this rolls up to the next level.
I
So
appreciate your time. I don't know if I'll have the energy by then.
Night, everybody.
And anyway, thank you so much for your hard work. Sorry that we went late, but it was important, and we thank you for your time, every bit of it. Have a lovely evening, and we will reconvene in 2 weeks, Mary Beth.
Yes, February 17th, 6 o'clock, and we'll pick up on map site number 17.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
I know.